Okay, I did my co-op in Edinburgh, Scotland with a company called Curry and Brown. They're a consulting firm in the construction industry, or sector, amongst other things. I worked on the project management and cost management teams, and the job was it was pretty good. The people I worked with were great, but overall it was an awesome experience. I guess getting there, like to the point where you got a job, was probably the most like uncertain, because like I got a job offer, but I didn't get like a formal contract for like 2 months, pretty much like a month before I left. So I sort of just crossed my fingers that they were actually going to send it, but they did. So it all worked out in the end, anyways. But I guess like recommendations would just be like, if you want to go, you'll make it happen. Like the opportunities are there. Hold out for it. It's worth it. I mean, I interviewed for local jobs too. I turned down 3 while I was waiting for their contract to come through, and it still worked out. I got a work visa through BUNAC, which I think pretty much everyone does, right? And they're an awesome organization. Like when I got there, you just like the first day you have to go there to get your work visa validated, and they just have everything like set up. They've done it before, you know. Like there's tons of kids coming in. There's a great network to fall back on, and any questions, any issues, any problems you ever have, like they're the people you want to go see. My recommendation for flying, however, if you're working in Scotland, or I don't know if that pertains, yeah, I guess just probably Scotland, don't fly through Ireland. It's not worth it. Like you don't go pass through immigration, so you don't get your like visa validated. I figured it'd be cheaper. I didn't really care. I was like, oh, so what if I have to leave? I'll just leave the country. It's cheap. Like it's cheap to fly international, like airlines, Ryanair, whatnot. But it's a major inconvenience, like when you're first getting to a country and trying to like find a place to live. And it saved me money in the long run. I mean, I went to Italy for a day, but it wasn't worth it. It was more of a pain than anything, like logistic-wise. I'm trying to think what else. Housing, in terms of housing, I didn't have a problem. Like my company paid for a week up front for me to stay in a hotel. It was awful because it's so lonely. You don't meet anybody. Like it's convenient to have a place to stay and someone to pay for you, like for your, you know, when you first get there. But I actually didn't find a place to stay straight away, or I didn't want to. Went into a hostel and met a ton of people that way, and was a bit more choosy about my housing. And it worked out pretty well. I mean, I walked to work every single day. It was like 45 minutes away, but I walked straight through the center of Edinburgh, which is absolutely gorgeous. And it was a nice walk to work in the morning, and then the evenings. And it kept me in shape.
This is the house I stayed at in San Jose. It's not your typical Costa Rican house, but it was very, very nice. I lived with a woman who was like, she was in her 60s, and she had raised, she had 4 kids, and when I moved there, at first she had a daughter who was staying with us who was about 25. So that was nice to have someone there that like she knew English. She was actually going to study in the US. So it was nice to have her around. She could practice her English with me, and since my Spanish was so horrible, I could speak to her, and she could translate for me to her mother, because her mother only spoke Spanish, and the woman that also lived with us was the maid, and she was from Nicaragua, and she also only spoke Spanish. So the 2 of them could not understand me at all, because my Spanish was just very, very basic. So I had a horrible American accent, and she wasn't used to American accents. She didn't have any interest in learning English or anything like that, which was fine. I mean, it helped my Spanish a lot. It was just really, really hard at first, trying to get through a meal and you know, be able to say, can I have, you know, whatever, a glass of something or more, or I don't want more, or I don't like this, or I don't want this. And it was very difficult at first, but by the end, I really got to know the woman and like her life story. I mean, she told me everything about all her kids growing up and her husband and anything and everything. And we chatted a lot. And she took me to her, what was it? It was her nephew. He got married, so I actually got to a wedding while I was down there. And I got to also go to family parties and all sorts of other kinds. I went to birthday parties and engagement party. She took me to a soccer game. It was really nice. I mean, she was a lot older than I am, but she was like fun-loving and loved the fact that she had someone from that she could show her country to and her culture. So, this is the place I volunteered. I was at the Children's Hospital in downtown San Jose. I worked with, in the beginning, mostly the babies, because I couldn't speak very much, so babies don't say anything, so it makes it a lot easier. And they also don't care what you say to them, so if you speak poorly in Spanish to them, they're not going to respond, whereas the older children will laugh at you. And some of them do know English and will then point out that they know more words than you might at the time. So, like one time I was in the playroom working with kids, and a kid came up to me and asked me for scissors in Spanish. And I knew he was asking for something, but I didn't know the word for scissors at the time. And I'm like, what? And he said it again, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I just don't understand you. And he stops and he goes, scissors, like in English. And I'm like, oh. It's like 8 years old, and you know, totally up me on that one. But so that was fun. So at the beginning was working with the infants and stuff, and I was being in the hospital. I'm a nursing major, so I'm used to the environment, and they let me take care of the babies for the day, like in the morning, like feed them, change them, you know. Rock them, play with them. The environment there, they don't have a lot of help for nurses, so it's really nice that they have these volunteers that come in and have the time to sit and entertain the kids or take care of the infants and stuff, because otherwise the families do it themselves. And families will come in, and if their kid's in the hospital for 2 weeks to a month, they'll come in every day, and some of them will spend the entire day and night with the kid, because they know that the staff is overwhelmed, and that if you want your kid to get the full attention that it needs, then they're there to do it themselves. And the nurses and doctors and everyone there just don't have the time. So for the babies that don't have family with them, or the children that the mothers or someone are working, then the volunteers come in and help those kids out. So it was really enjoyable.
So I taught English in Tupac Amaru. It was a school. There were 3 schools in the little town that I worked in, and this one had 8 classrooms of 30 kids in each of them, and I had classrooms filled with anyone between the age of 3 to 16, learning disabilities, undiagnosed. It was absolutely crazy. So I not only was in there to teach English, but I also had to teach math and reading and writing and so many other things. But I think there were many days when I'd come home and think did I teach more than I learned? There's just so much that they were teaching me down there that I'd come home and sit down and be like, oh God, did I teach them enough today? I would put my heart into lesson plans and thinking of what to do, but at the same time they gave so much back to me, every single child there. So these are just pictures. Actually, I was the only volunteer in this town for about 2 months. And then I had another volunteer, Mark, come and help me for about 2 weeks, which was really nice to have some extra help and see the difference between a man in the classroom and a woman in the classroom. And it's sad but true. There was a huge difference between the children. So what I found out of this is that your placement, your international club is what you make of it. So I had the schedule of 7 o'clock to 1 o'clock during the day of teaching, and I found that I'd get home in the day and be like, oh God, I really wanted to do more. I'd feel like I wanted to give more to the town, and my day was not over. So I went to a special needs center in the afternoon, and I did home visits with the kids and taught their parents how to take care of their kids. There's a lot of lack of special needs education down there. I did one-on-one lessons with, Martin was one of the salsa instructors who'd always want to know a little bit more English to help his salsa business out. Then it was a surfer town too, so I'd fix surfing signs to help with the tourism and make it more clear for everyone. And then my kind of big story that I ran home, and I mean, I didn't go on the internet much, but this one time I had to go home and type up this just huge, massive email. I think it might have been the first one that I sent home about my beach kids, which was Miluska and Denilson. They're 2 kids. Miluska sat down next to me on the beach one day in the afternoon, and she said, I know you're the English teacher here, but I can't go to school. I have to sell. She had this big box of candy that she had to sell, and she said, I really want to learn English though. And I took it it was just incredible. We do afternoons of English lessons, and it wasn't even a teacher-student situation, it was more of a sister situation. I'd walk her home late at night. She'd never really let me see like her house at all, but it was just great. She'd look for me like throughout the city and yell my name while she was crossing the street and stuff, and we'd sell candy together and work on English. And that was just kind of, God, one of the most like amazing things in my travels there. And Denelson was her brother, who also, you can see them, these are fundraising books that I got. So they had so much fun going through them and learning English. So that was really exciting. It was really different to see the difference between kids who really truly wanted to learn English and the kids who were in the school with volunteers coming through continuously and who didn't really know the importance of learning English. So Luska and Denelson really wanted to learn English because it would benefit their selling of candy, sadly. But
for me, I just knew that I wanted to be abroad, and I wanted to be maybe kind of close to European ways, but also kind of a little different. And Turkey is perfect because half of it is on the European continent and half of it is on the Asian continent. So sometimes I found myself wondering, where in the world am I? And sometimes I just felt right at home. But I think you really need to think about what you want to get out of an international co-op. Meet with your advisors, and really, I guess the biggest advice too is talk to as many people as you can and read as much as you can about the country that you want to go to, because it'll only make it easier once you get there. Be open to new ideas and different methods of learning. When we got there, we were told by one of the teachers that you're going to see that the teaching is different here and people will not really tell you what they want. And at first we were like, okay, whatever, that's fine. And then we kind of realized that no one would ever tell us what they wanted us to do or what our goals were or anything. And that was kind of different than our past co-ops. It was like, normally in the US, you have goals and you decide what you want to get done before you start working. And if you reach those goals, then great. But here, people would kind of give us jobs to do and not really tell us when they wanted it by. So it's just good to remember that things are going to be different, and in different countries, people have different methods of getting things done. And also expect to have culture shock, not just at the beginning of going to a country and not just getting home, but anytime throughout your whole trip. Like, I was constantly coming across new things that were really different, and even now coming home, like, she left, but like she said, I still today, like, things seem weird to me being back at Northeastern when coming home and everyone is just doing the same exact thing as when I left, so that's kind of different. But just be ready for culture shock throughout your entire trip.
Yeah. We worked at this school called TOB. It's Economic and Technological University, I think, in Turkish. I forget how it was pronounced now.
Yeah.
But it was it's kind of a modern school, and the students are close to your age, which is weird. Neither of us, well, you a little bit, but I had never been a teacher before, and suddenly they will put you in front of a classroom with, you know, students who are like 19, 20, and it's weird, but it was a really good experience. Yeah, the place has some cafes we go to during lunch. It should now have a gym, a swimming pool, some clubs, you know. It's a modern school, it's growing, so you'll go there, you'll see a lot of changes if you're thinking about it. Julia and I were the only native speakers at the university. There were no other English teachers who spoke, you know, really fluent English. They were all learning too, so the teachers themselves would come to us for advice, and that was really good for us to be in such a position to help just by virtue of speaking the language that we grew up with. I mean, it was great. It was also difficult to be the only ones who had that sort of, I don't know, familiarity with the language, because we were really the only ones that students could go to with the really difficult questions. But
I went to London to do corporate investment banking with the French firm BNP Paribas. Laura, how are you? I spoke to Cynthia, Katie, and Melissa early last year, and I said, listen, finance, insurance, I really want to go elsewhere because the country is kind of in economic turmoil. Let's see what we can do. And they said, go to England. Absolutely. So somehow I landed the position. I had a phone interview with a very nice French gentleman. The bank that I worked for, BNP Paribas, is about 80% French, even in their London office. So it was kind of difficult at first to go there, but I mean, I didn't speak any French. When I went there, I didn't barely speak English properly. So I show up, and it was a very interesting experience. 4 days before I left for the UK, I had hernia surgery. So when you're going for 6 months by yourself and you can't carry anything, it's a little overwhelming. But I showed up, and people were very nice. And I lived with 2 other people, 2 other Northeastern students that are not available right now. But somehow we struck the jackpot, and a family friend of mine had a flat in central London. So it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It was really nice, right next to the British Museum. So he cut us a good deal, so we didn't really have to search too hard for an apartment. But if anybody's interested in going there, Gumtree.com is the equivalent of Craigslist. It's amazing. You could meet people that want to take you tango dancing, and you can find apartments. We got all of our utilities from the apartment there, and we sold them on there 6 months later. My office, BNP Paribas, is the National Bank of France. It's the 3rd largest bank in Europe. And what I did was, it was corporate investment banking, executive level management. So I got to meet some really, really important people to me as a finance guy. My group was 10 people, and they pretty much deal with CEOs, CFOs of big banks, like Stephen Green of HSBC made like 20 billion pounds in bonuses last year, and I was able to go on like I met him before he went on a sailing regatta with my boss. It was really cool.
Did you get any?
I'm sorry?
Did you get any?
He did not give me anything. He's a nice guy though, little short British man, but very, very nice people. The office was really amazing. I kind of got the best of both worlds because I was living in the UK and I got to hang out with French people. And I know a lot of people aren't too fond of the French, but I came back and I'm the biggest fan. I mean, our cafeteria was like 4-star. Everything was subsidized. It was amazing. People were drinking wine in the cafeteria. It was a lot of fun. Throughout my time there, it was interesting because for anybody finance related, you know what was going on in America pretty much, and it was absolutely affecting the UK and Europe and even Middle East and Asia and Australia, and those were the people that we were dealing with. And they put some heavy work on my shoulders, but I mean, you learn to deal with it, and people are very willing to help you.
Hi, so my name is Jesse. I'm a physics major here at Northeastern, and for my co-op, my international co-op, I went to India. So this is actually, well, unlike most of the people here, I didn't go and work in a company or a nonprofit. I actually ended up at a research institute, and it was unpaid. I ended up on a project, and so they said, okay, what do you know? Okay, go do this. And so what I ended up saying was Fermi liquid theory, and so I'll lay off with that, because that would just be a root canal. So this is where I was. So I was in India, but India's a pretty big place, so with the help of Google Maps, I put some arrows on it. And I ended up in Mumbai, the city formerly known as Bombay, which again was formerly known as Mumbai. It's the capital of the country, and it's a growing metropolis, particularly it's centered, mostly here is the urban area. This is still part of Mumbai. Has anyone here actually seen a Bollywood movie? We got 1, we got 2, 3. They're pretty interesting, but they're filmed right up here in Bollywood. It's India's Hollywood. They produce more movies than I think like 10 times the amount of movies we do in here. And actually, I ended up down all the way here at the very southernmost tip at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. This is what it looked like when I first got there. They were in the midst of doing some work. I guess pigeon shit collects over the coast. And they need jackhammers to take it off. So they had these scaffolds up, and needless to say, that was an ongoing project. But by the end, it was all taken down, and the garden was in full bloom. It was very nice. I didn't have a lab, I didn't have an office. Instead, I spent most of my time in the library, and this was essentially what I did most of my time. That's it, at the desk. And there's a nice view of the garden over here on the right, and then I get breaks for tea and whatever else. Actually, I sort of tea something like, I don't know, 7 times a day. It's fantastic. You all have that caffeine. And so, without going any further, I'll just say that was the physics. So let's leave it there. So the culture, now that's the more interesting part. Well, in India, a big game is cricket. And in particular, one of the big rivalries, sort of like you might imagine, of Red Sox versus Yankees, is India versus Pakistan. And so this particular night was not India versus Pakistan, it was actually India versus Australia, which is another big rivalry, because typically it's India, Australia, and Pakistan that make it towards the finals, and India usually would lose to Australia, but if they won against Australia, they would go against Pakistan. So this is like the game leading to the big game. So they had the sports bar, which was a pretty interesting experience, 10 o'clock. And by about 1:30 in the morning. Don't be afraid of leaving your comfort box. I think that's really important. I'm pretty sure that most of the people in here won't have a problem with that. Pretty sure. I don't think you'd be here if that was the case. But I'm pretty sure also that we can imagine people in our own lives that would be afraid to leave their comfort box. So my best advice is don't be like your friends. The second one is write. Write everything you possibly can. And I mean that in the sense that, well, what I did was actually, I brought this last talk and I brought it to this one, is I kept a little, kind of a pocket journal thing going. So, and it was nice because it gave me a way to sort of keep track of how sort of the inner reality of life was changing while I was there. Once a week I made a point to write a blog. A lot of friends and family were like, oh, we'll be in touch and we'll call you on Skype and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm sitting there like, no you won't, because I'm not going to answer it. Sorry, but have fun. Just, I found that writing a blog was actually a very useful tool. A useful tool to keep in touch and a useful tool to stop at the end of the week and reflect on your experiences. This really helped with that. So, right. And the real big point is, please, for the love of God, disconnect from everything. Don't bring a cell phone. Don't check your email perpetually. Don't worry about these things because it will only hold you back and prevent you from having an experience that will really change the shape of your life. So,
I worked for the Cartoon Network. The Cartoon Network. All of the European programming for Turner Broadcasting and Time Warner, which is CNN, TCM, Cartoon Network, all those are actually out of Europe. So it's all out of London for the rest of Europe and part of Northern Africa. So CNN was on the 2nd floor, I was on the 3rd floor. We actually had a fire drill at one point, and you get the anchors from CNN having to go outside. They still got their microphones attached and everything. So if you watch a lot of the European news, you'll recognize people within the office, or you'll see them in the elevator. So it's a very unique kind of unique co-op. I was very, very lucky. What my job was is I worked directly with the senior programmer for the Cartoon Network for the actual Nordic channel. And by work directly with, I mean I sat directly across from him. He wasn't in an office in a corner somewhere. I sat right next to him. It was great. If I had any questions, he was right there. I could ask. There was no delay on anything. He's a really nice guy. He's actually from Sweden, and he is the most American person I've ever met. He's more American than any American I've ever known. He would come in with his collars popped on his polo shirts, his Timberland boots, and his Red Sox hat. He's the biggest Red Sox fan and 49ers fan. It's really incredible. That's all he really wants to talk about most of the time. Kind of my main job was to plan these schedules for all of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. We also have kind of subsequent channels in Iceland as well, but we don't really kind of do the scheduling for them. We just kind of roll over from the other channels. And I got to preview a lot of shows, so you really need to like cartoons if you're interested in this position. I don't think I had watched a cartoon in about 10 years before I applied. I did not tell Nick that in my interview, but it was just really unique. Just an amazing, oh, it didn't go over well. As far as my responsibilities, I was in weekly conference calls with the other offices in other countries. So on a regular basis, I was corresponding with Denmark and Stockholm, Oslo, all the time. It was just really amazing because I would be emailing people and I would even forget they were in other countries because it was just this constant flow of information. I had to make sure that new tapes had been received. We acquired and bought new shows. I had to make sure that I worked as a liaison with Warner Brothers to making sure that all the new tapes were in on time, that they were able to air. I had to make sure that they were all dubbed properly and manage a lot of the translations. I don't know any of the Scandinavian languages, but it doesn't matter. You can get somebody that, Nick, who was the boss, he spoke all of them. You just kind of need to manage and make sure that you're on top of everything. You don't need to know the languages. It never really came up. You plan the monthly schedules as far as what shows you're going to air at what time, what's best to air certain shows. Is it better to air them after school, in the mornings, in the evenings, like as far as like age groups go. You're going to air Bob the Builder at 6 a.m. You're not going to air it in the afternoon. You're going to put Looney Tunes or Scooby-Doo in the afternoon. We had to manage show content. There's a few actually kind of interesting shows like Tom and Jerry. There's things that when the shows were made, back in the 50s and 60s, things that they can't air now. So we had to make sure that certain episodes were actually taken out of the lineup because somebody had a tattoo or somebody had a cigarette, and you can't have that on children's programming. Some of the perks, the corporate culture at Turner Broadcasting is absolutely incredible. Everyone is so friendly. We had charity concerts, like Battle of the Bands for bands that were who had members from the office in them. Lots of community service opportunities. They're very, very into volunteering and environmentally friendly activities over in London. We had just all kinds of, could get a day off of work and go paint a fence in like East London or work on a farm like outside of the city for the day. I got to sit in Endeaving, which was really incredible. The office is right in Soho in central London. Like you can't get any more in London than where this office is. The dubbing studios are really incredible. It's kind of just right around the corner a little bit. So you go down to the office for the afternoon, go sit in the dubbing studio, where they actually have to lay over the new language and they have to like slow things down, speed things up in order to get the mouth to move right, to say the certain words. It's really, really interesting to watch, and the studios themselves are really fun because they bring you coffee, you get like bottled Avion water, they pay for your lunch, and it's like, you've got these little interns running around kind of like making sure that you've got everything. And I was an intern myself, but nobody knew, so it was just really, really fun because this is a nice little change from the kind of day-to-day thing. The location, of course, is absolutely incredible. Like Oxford Circus is right, like the actual hub of central London. If you know anything about London, Carnaby Street is directly across the street. The West End Theatre District, right around the corner, Soho, there's all kinds of bars, restaurants, shops, anything. It's a little bit awful around Christmas time because you can't see the pavement around Christmas time because there are so many people, but up until about middle of November, it's really, really fun. I got vacation days as well. I think I got about 10 days while I was there. My life in the job, I had a lot of freedom. Nick is very laid back. He, if you have an interest in another department, he'll let you go explore and work on a project over there. Towards the end, I was going to work with animation people on a few things. I never really got around to it, but it's definitely a possibility to do kind of whatever you want. If you have an interest, if you find out that you like something that CNN's doing, like Nick will let you go and kind of sit with CNN and see what they're doing. And as long as you get your work done, he's just really, really flexible about what he lets you do. You get a lot of exposure to the rest of the company because everyone is in the same building. So, I sat next to one of the guys who did kind of the same work that I was doing, but he was doing it for TCM in Central Europe. So, and then people, the marketing department or the international marketing department sat next to me as well. So, we've got people dealing with, Poland, Turkey, Romania, Hungary, Russia, like all on a regular basis. So just the diversity is absolutely incredible, and you just really easy access to kind of all areas of programming and media. One thing that was really funny while when I was trying to get myself oriented was I had to go find HR and get a few things done. I really had no idea where I was going. The desks aren't labeled. It's a very open office, which is completely different. I was coming from a finance background. I worked at John Hancock for my first co-op, so I was coming from not only, proper suits, French cuff shirts, like, women had to wear nylons every day to work, kind of atmosphere where everything was labeled, everything was meticulously planned out, to an open plan office where nobody had a name on their desk, people wore jeans to work, we had a foosball table in the kitchen, like the complete polar opposite of where I'd been working before. My idea of casual was not wearing a suit jacket to the office. Like that's about, as far as I knew about office casual. But we had life-size cartoon characters everywhere and people dressing up in costumes on a regular basis. So to get directions around the office, it would be like, go up to the 3rd floor. When you see Dorothy, make a right. When you see, Blue from one of the shows, make a left there. If you see Scooby-Doo, like you've gone too far. Like that's how you got yourself around the office. Some of the dislikes and kind of frustrating parts where the pay it's awful. It really is. It's really difficult. I was getting paid minimum wage, which in London is about £4.50 an hour, so a little bit less than $9 an hour is what I was getting paid. I know I was lucky to get paid, but I was barely getting paid. It can be done. I left, I had saved a little bit. I had little bit left over from some student loans. I didn't have a credit card. I have no financial support from my parents, so I left with, basically going to live off of what I was making, and I did it. I didn't come back with any debt. I had a couple of glitches here and there, but came back, just broke even. No debt whatsoever. So you can definitely do it. It's difficult. You have to budget. You have to plan, but you can definitely get it done.